How's it guys? Welcome back to Project Drive. So I've told jokes I'd get a special one for the 150 subscriber count. I know it's been a while, been over a month now, but as you can see I've got the new 110 Defender. This is the D300X Dynamic, came out in I think November 2020, although this is a pretty new one, so it's already got the side sills still wrapped in plastic. So we're going to take it for a bit of a drive today, see what it's like, and ultimately answer the question, what is it like and why should you own a Defender in 2023? Let's get into it. So starting off at the front of the car, you can see it's got nice wide bulging haunches like any good Defender should have. A lot of people have obviously speculated that this is not a real Defender, but in the metal it really is quite an imposing car. We come to the front here and you look at it and it really just speaks almost front row rugby player. It's this big stocky vehicle. It's actually very tall. It almost looks a bit stockier and smaller in pictures, but in the metal it is quite something to see, quite imposing. The only thing I'll criticize off the bat is the fact that you've got this grid pattern like all Defenders do for that protection, but this is actually plastic, so it doesn't have that kind of same protection, but it's more just there for show. Now, starting truly at the front here, we can see that we've got LED daytime running lights that take up that perimeter, and of course the side there you've got a mirrored reflection of the rear indicator, so that's obviously where the indicators go. These are not the matrix LED headlights, but they are the standards. You've got your LED spotlights down here along with the front grille. This is also plastic fascia, but if you do come under the car, you can see there is metal cladding, hopefully, with my camera. But anyway, so coming to the front grille of the car now, we can see that we've got your standard Land Rover branding here and Defender across the front. It all looks very good. Coming around now to the side of the car, we've got these lovely 18-inch heritage alloy wheels, which actually feel matte to the touch, which is really cool. You can see that it obviously harks back to the original Defender style wheels, well, one of the classic shades of that, which is fantastic. I do believe these Goodyears were actually developed directly for this car. If it's for like adventuring on road, it's supposed to be a good middle ground tire, and there are 255s all round, so a good nice contact patch for off-roading and on-roading. I did hear that from Paul Marek from Car Expert, so if he's wrong, well, I guess I don't really know who to trust. He's a very good car journalist. So we can also see we've got these really big vented brakes. Rear tires, as I said, are still 255, still these Goodyear Wranglers, which is quite a laugh, to be honest, that they're called the Wrangler, although of course it's a Defender. You've got single caliper brakes at the back here, also I think vented disc brakes, so at least, you know, they'll be put up to the test. This car is, of course, you know, in the modern era where cars are very powerful and need good stopping power. So coming around to the back, we've got these iconic kind of Defender style lights here with the indicators, of course, on the left, which are mirrored exactly the same in the front. We got your Defender and D300 badging right there. We've got these, obviously, these chassis mounted hooks here, so if you needed to obviously stabilize something or tow someone, you can I think these are actually chassis hooks, so you can do that. We've got quite an odd extension here, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the drive, and why some things in this car don't exactly make a lot of sense. So this is the optional electronic tow hitch, so it obviously deploys and recedes automatically. However, it does unfortunately not, as you can see, extend enough to accommodate some trailers. You know, it needs an extension, an aftermarket extension, which is obviously kind of poses the thought, you know, what were they really thinking? You can see we've got our twin tailpipes and barge style muffler back here, so obviously it's not a loud car, it's a diesel, so I'm going to have those V8 roar that the P525 I think has, but you can see some of the suspension architecture back here. I do believe it is independent suspension all round, and it's also on air suspension. We've got our big Land Rover style rear tire here, which really extends the back of the car quite a lot. So if I come around to the side here, you can see this is already a 5-meter car, so that should give you an idea of how big this thing is. It's absolutely massive. And then you've got this massive rear tire tacked onto the back. All right, now how do you get back into your new Defender? Well, if you want to get into the back, there's a little switch here. It's not actually a pull style lever, it's actually just a little button there. You can see I press my fingers against it. And then you've got a well, essentially what is a hood strut that opens it nice and softly. Although of course, you know, although you've got that big rear tire, you're going to have to accommodate this car for some space if you are opening the rear tailgate, because of course this glass doesn't recede or open, so that's your only way in. I do digress. However, you've got lovely Defender badging right there. You've of course got a couple of things you can take off, which is quite cool. They have at least hark back to the utilitarian nature of this vehicle, so you know, certain things just twist out and you know, you can access it that way. So you've got some storage there. You've got, of course, got this really nice plastic material that actually does lift out if you need it to, so you can either hose it off. Hold on, there you go, pops out to reveal puncture well, your hitch to obviously open and replace your tire. It clips back in. It can be hosed off, as I said, and it is this nice rugged material. You've got LED lights flanking each side of the boot, along with grocery hooks, which is quite lekker. Everybody appreciates those. And this is not spec'd with the optional rear seats, which I think makes sense in this car. You can of course fold these seats down in a I think 40 20 40 arrangements, which is quite cool, so you don't have to do 40 60, but I guess at this price point you would expect that. And you've got these lovely heritage Defender style windows, which is really cool. Okay, getting into the rear of the Defender, so this is obviously a real door handle, so it does pull out like that. The doors feel nice and meaty, as they should at this price point. So now we get into the Defender, close the door, and it is really quite spacious in here. Obviously I'm not a tall guy, so you've got loads of room, but if you were tall you could actually sit behind yourself, I think, quite comfortably. We see we've got the Land Rover badging on our lovely infotainment. I don't know exactly how big it is, but it's about the size of a regular iPad, so it really is quite massive. We've of course got auto climate control back here, along with two USB-C inputs but no USB-A. So I think if you option this car with other ports, I think there are other options, but of course, you know, you've got these lovely dials, got a great feel to them. If you hit the auto button, you know, you get your auto climate control. Whew, it's hot today, guys, excuse my huffing and puffing. You've got I don't like to call it an oh crap handle, because obviously it's not really what it's called, but I mean that's what everybody calls it. So you got that, you got this to get in. It's a really nice rubberized feel back here. You've got really cool elements of white, you know, just to kind of bring out and break the color a little bit. You've got these lovely proprietary bolts that obviously if you really want to take the door apart you could. I'm sure you'd have to get Land Rover to do that themselves. Otherwise, of course, you've got electric windows back here, and I don't know, it's a nice cabin. You've also got this panoramic sunroof, which is fantastic, and I'm sure I'll be opening that today to bring some light into the car if I need to. But otherwise, just a really nice back space. I mean, and the third row is actually quite lekker. You've of course got cup holders and stuff like that. That's quite cool. Everyone's got their own individual headrests, although the visibility out the back, as I said, is quite compromised. That tire really takes up a lot of the space. Okay, so coming into the Defender, to open up what is the engine, so I'm going to give that a bit of a start in a moment. We can see we've got a very similar setup, of course, but you've got your control binnacle here with everything, so you know, your windows, your manual seat control, memory points, which is quite cool. Then of course you've got your child lock windows and stuff like that, your unlock lock switch, and then of course Meridian sound system. I would believe that this would be an option, because Meridian sound is typically an option you would even put in a Lexus, so I imagine that it is optional. I'll be testing that of course in the actual review, but of course obviously not copywriting myself, so I'll tell you how it sounds, but you won't obviously be able to tell how it really sounds. You just have to take my word for it. So we can see it's got this lovely utilitarian style wheel. Let me actually get in. Ooh. And kind of show you what. So this is clearly not got the digital dials. This has got kind of a mix, so whatever is not obviously present on the actual dials themselves gets replicated by the digital screen in the middle. I don't really mind that. At this price point, I think you would probably want a little bit more there. So as you can see, we've got a really nice big place for your cups and the cup holders and stuff like that. I do believe on some markets that this is a smaller cup holder to put in smaller cups, but I think these rubber stoppers do a really good job of stopping. This is a liter flask here. You've got a USB-A and USB Type-C inlet, and then of course you've got your 12-volt cigarette lighter style. You've got your, I believe this is a ZF 8-speed, I could be wrong, but I know Jaguar Land Rover really like to use that transmission along with the whole of the car industry really. And then of course you've got your air vents. I think the rest of the speaker grill is up there. And the rest is kind of mirrored on the side, but you've also got really big door bins. I know that my bottle does actually fit in there as well. So anyway, let's start up the car quickly. All right, so everything starts up. You've got your good morning. It's still morning, but you can see it's got this lovely look to it. Everything's very modern, everything's very lovely and falls to hand. Thankfully there's a good mix of digital and physical controls, thank goodness. That's what when I would have gone, okay, is this really a Defender? And we'll talk about that a little bit more on the drive, but let's go have a look at the engine quickly. Alright, so onto the engine. We can see it's the 3-liter inline-6 diesel that replaced the 2-liter inline-4 diesel of the original cars. I remember the original Defender 90 being a lot like that. And people obviously didn't appreciate the 4-cylinder, especially in the American market, I believe. So this is a much more beefed up. I think it is a Jaguar Land Rover derived engine as well. I'm not sure how much help BMW obviously gave them. I don't know when that ownership changeover took place, but as you can see, we've got our intake fan in here going straight into what is obviously the turbocharger, which you can kind of see behind there, but it's not really that simple, you know. Cars even here and there's the turbocharger, but it's obviously a very complex engine bay with a nice big plastic cover. But anyway, let's see how this thing actually does on the road, shall we? Okay, alright, you join me for the obligatory spec review. I can't really believe I'm here, to be honest. This is a really nice car, fantastic owner, as I said, it's a rental like 100 times. So this is a 2020, I do believe, although I haven't actually checked the VIN itself. This is when this model was released, it's in November 2020. Land Rover Defender 110 D300X. So the average mileage is 7.6 per 100, which is actually quite comparable to, in fact it's quite a bit less than the Discovery 4 over there, my parents' one, which obviously gets like I think 8.8. So it's a significant improvement with a very or in fact with the same displacements. It just shows you how far engines have come. The top speed rated is 191 km an hour, but it's not even really relevant to a car like this, with a 0 to 100 time though of 7 seconds. So it's quite a bit faster than the car over there as well, which is fantastic. I'll see how brisk it is in a moment on the highway. Of course, I said it's a 3-liter inline-6 turbo diesel, if you didn't hear me in the engine review there, with the 8-speed ZF automatic, as I'm very sure that's exactly what it is. It's been used countless times. It's a 221 kilowatt engine, so that's 296 horsepower or 300 PS. At 4,000 RPM, so making it like a diesel right at the 4,000 mark. It's also making 650 Newton meters of torque, which is somewhere in the like 479 pound-feet region or something like that, at 1,500 to 2,500 RPM, which is obviously nice and girthy. You'll feel the torque properly in this car. The ground clearance starts at 190, which is quite impressive, but what's really impressive about this car is that I think it's a 30-degree attack angle if I can call it. So where and then the departure angle is like 40 degrees in the back, and then it just gets more significant of course as you raise the car. So this car can be raised a further 100 millimeters to 291 millimeters, which is seriously impressive. I don't think I'll be raising the car today. It's obviously not my car and it's a rental, but it is very well capable of doing that. It's 2,558 kilograms curb weight. I'm misreading that. That's for the Discovery 4. I'm not entirely sure what the weight of this car is. The boot space starts out about 857 liters, and it can get to about 1946 liters if everything is folded flat. So that's obviously quite an impressive storage. And the fuel tank's 89 liters, weirdly. Okay, you join me for the drive portion of the 2020 Land Rover Defender 110. Well, so I just drove out of the estate now, and from what I can tell right off the bat, it's a very modern, very easy car to drive. The steering is electric in its feel, but it's got a nice amount of artificial weight to it, so you don't really ever feel like you're actually like you're not driving a computer. I think that was quite important to Land Rover with this, because they really had to give it hones to try get the Defender name to keep its status amongst even Defender people. Anyway, coming up Pisang Valley Road here, which anybody will know in Plato is a very twisty road, pretty treacherous to be honest. I think they should really think about repaving it a little bit, but anyway, it works just fine. The car stays unusually flat for such a tall car. It shows you the suspension tuning. This air suspension has kind of been honed in by Land Rover for quite a while now. It rides exceptionally well, not floaty, like Paul Marek from Car Expert said. It's important that you actually feel what's going on underneath you, and thankfully this car does actually provide that just fine, which is obviously fantastic. So they did actually really think about the suspension, but Land Rover always does good suspension, let's be honest. Their new air suspension is fantastic, but not fantastic to fix. So I suppose I should come into the what people might worry about when getting a car like this, is of course one of the big ones, Land Rover reliability, parts availability, what the dealer experience is like. So Kevin was telling me dealing with the Land Rover guys has been fine, but of course when he collected his original new Defender, the starter motor broke almost immediately, and that's, I think, got a lot to do with this car's pedigree. So it's obviously got to be unbelievably good off-road, but what ended up actually happening was putting 8 computers in this makes it almost a needlessly complicated experience, and a tiny little sensor broke behind the brake pedal there, not allowing the car to start. So the starter motor actually didn't break itself, it was just the sensor that allowed the car to start in the first place. So it's kind of tricky and tough to understand why, of course, cars need as many sensors as they do when the Toyota's Land Cruiser 70 series still sells unbelievably well, with half the tech, not even half the tech of this car. By the way, these seats, just to jump around a little bit, while obviously being very comfortable, are quite utilitarian. The Defender nameplate, I don't believe, has lost as much as people will say it has, in terms of people going, oh well, it's not a Defender, it's not utilitarian anymore, would you really take it off-road? You wouldn't feel that bad in this particular spec taking it off-road. It's got enough cladding. I think on the outside I would have personally got the optional cladding, plastic fenders all the way out, that stick out over the wheel arches, but that's obviously an option you can always get. The car feels capable, it's tall, it's rugged, and inside, of course, it doesn't feel so leathery and couch-like that you'd be like, okay, I'm in a Rolls Royce. You know you're in a car that's capable. I will say the rest of the car, though, inside is definitely nice enough. For this price point, everything does feel very solid. I mean, normally Land Rovers are actually a symphony of creaks, and this one is absolutely nothing like that, but we'll have to see whether it stands the test of time or not. Okay, so the camera back there is obviously attached to the aerial fin. It really helps me just see behind that rear tire, which is cool. So certain things in this car absolutely very well thought about, but the tow hitch is not one of them. Obviously we talked about it very briefly outside there. That does boggle the mind. You don't obviously have to get it, it's an option, the deployable hitch, the automatically deploying hitch, but the fact that it doesn't reach Kevin's boat trailer correctly and he has to get an extension is also mind-boggling. Like, how do you not think of that? And that part that he needs, that sensor for his car, is also only coming in about 4 weeks, where this is quite a big Land Rover market in South Africa. You know, people will say, oh well, it's a poorer car market. In some ways it is, but of course the people who do want luxury goods typically go the Land Rover route, and there's many Defenders rolling around, even just in Plett here. So I do feel like it's a little bit silly that we get the back end of the stick maybe in South Africa as South Africa Land Rover, because really it is a car that that is quite prevalent within our culture. I mean, we are certainly a Defender culture of the world, along with Australia and New Zealand. Anyway, basically I digress. So now just going over a little bit worse road surface. You do hear a bit more road noise, but I was listening to the sound system earlier and it could easily drown out This Meridian sound system is really nice and well judged. I haven't messed with the sound EQ at all, but it's got a really nice tone to it. It's not egregious. It doesn't, the highs are good, they're present, but they're not overbearing. The lows are great, but it's not distorted. So a really good general audio system. The general visibility besides the rear is actually quite good. You can see over this quite long bonnet here. Okay, so just coming back onto the highway now, we finally got an overtake lane, so let's just see what that's like for a moment. So it's got some boomer. Okay, yeah, right, that should give me a pretty good idea of what this car's like. Plenty of overtaking power, plenty of sound actually. I would have thought the sound would have been a little bit more muted. So I'm actually reversing out of a rut here because I went up the wrong path, and the 360 cameras on this car are pretty amazing. They're showing me exactly where to go. It's almost easy actually to get out of a situation like this if you're a fool like me and you decided to go the wrong way. So anyway, essentially I'm just going to make sure that I get over this path properly. Still good, no problems, still looking good. Yeah, still good, still good. So that's kind of a good indication of the capabilities of the computers in this car. You know, there are a flurry of them, as I mentioned, but it truly does help when you've decided to do something like that where you're not entirely sure, you know, what's going to happen. Can you get out of it? Yes, you can. It's quite easy, in fact. So yeah, checking out the turning circle on this thing. Am I going to make it? It's about a 12-meter turning circle. So okay, cool. All right, lekker. Well, you know, that was also pretty easy for a car this large. As I said, you know, 5 meters. So accelerating out here. So from the brief gravel that I did get up, it's amazing how the computers kind of sensed everything, how the cameras kind of turned on, and how it kind of went, okay, I understand what you're in now. Just going back into comfort, and now it's obviously going to soften everything off and kind of come back a little bit, but everything kind of sharpened up, even the throttle response and stuff like that, kind of just sharpened up so that you kind of understand a bit more what the car is doing. And it was obviously a doddle. It was really easy, but of course, you know, that's not true off-roading. I'm going to leave that for someone else to do because this isn't my car and it is a rental. Okay, so I feel like this is a good time for a conclusion now. So obviously I didn't get to everything I wanted to in this video, but from what I can surmise and what I can tell, this is a clearly capable car with total control over itself. I mean, you can obviously help it along, but there's so many computers and assists to really almost do it all for you. You can obviously do it all manually. You can turn off the traction control, do whatever you want, but there's always going to be a sense that this car is almost more capable than most people would be by themselves off-road. So that's what it's done. It's proven that it's a purely capable SUV now in the SUV market, which is important no matter what you think, because it's one of the highest selling segments in the world. And it proudly wears the Defender name, in my opinion, so it definitely does that well. Some negatives is dealer responses in South Africa in particular is not obviously always that great. Some things clearly really weren't thought about for a utilitarian vehicle like this, like the tow hitch for instance, which makes no sense. The fact that it has so many computers that it actually can confuse itself every now and then of course the car can be rendered useless, like it did in Kevin's case. But in general, it is a fantastic car to drive, and as Paul Marek said on his review of this car, it just makes you happy. That's what Land Rovers are so good at, unfortunately, because you know they're not always so great to us, but they do feel fantastic to drive, and this one is no different. So I hope that's left you with some helpful buying advice. If you want to get it and you can afford it and you understand it is a Land Rover at its core, I think there's really nothing else like it, none that I've driven anyway. So anyway, let me leave you with that, and thanks guys for sticking with me for so long. I'll hopefully have a few more videos for you in the future, cooler stuff on the horizon hopefully, and yeah, hopefully I get to drive more cars like this. So let me end off there, and yeah, hopefully see you in the next one. Like, subscribe if you like what I'm doing here, and ultimately, yeah, enjoy the drive. Cheers, folks.